Okay, thank you for clicking on this video. This is an unscripted video and it's a little bit out of sequence from what I originally intended, but since I'm setting this computer up for use as a daily driver, I thought that I'd go ahead and show you just how easy it is to go ahead and migrate from whatever operating system you're currently on to Linux. For that purpose, I'm going to be using Ubuntu 18.04. This is a disk that was packaged with a publication that's no longer being published. Linux user and developer stopped publishing last year, and 18.04 actually came out in 2018, about April of that year. It's a long-term support release. That's what LTS stands for, and even number years, the 04 edition is an LTS release. That means it has support for 5 years. So this version of Ubuntu 18.04 is going to be supported through 2023. Now I have a variety of options that I could show you. I could show you Pop! OS or Zorin or OpenSUSE or Manjaro, but since I am already using Ubuntu 18.04 both on the tablet, which is being used to record this video, and on the other computer, which has been my daily driver for the last year or so, since I'm already using Ubuntu 18.04, I figured I'd just install it on one of my operating drives for my laptop. Previous video I showed you what I was doing to turn my Dell Vostro 3550 into more than one computer by installing a caddy which has a swappable feature. I can swap the hard drives in and out of it. By installing that caddy, I can have a Windows 7 operating system disk through which I'll be able to scan with my scanner that's not well supported in Windows 10 and even less well supported in Linux. And then I can swap that out when I don't need it and use Linux as my daily driver. And I'll also be able to install an upgraded, quote-unquote, Windows 7 to Windows 10 hard drive. And that way I'll be able to have it for whatever I need to learn or do to be able to support folks at the 501c3 with which I'm affiliated, or family members that are using Windows 10. So in essence, I'm turning this laptop into 3 computers by having the swappable drive bay. But in order to use it as my daily driver, while I work on the one that's currently my daily driver, I have to get Ubuntu onto it. So this is an interim step. I'll be showing you just how easy it is to migrate to Linux, in this case using Ubuntu 18.04. So I'm going to shift the camera and then start talking to you as I go through the process with you. So here I have booted, and it can't find the hard drive without going to this screen. I get here by using F12, and I don't have an operating system on it currently, so I've installed the Ubuntu CD DVD into my optical drive, external optical drive, and let's see if it'll pick it up this way. I think it will, since this isn't normally on the menu. It does. So it's going into the boot menu from the disk, and as I said, this was made by Linux user and developer, but Ubuntu 18.04, if you wanted, and if you have older hardware, a 32-bit system, you could install Lubuntu on it. This is a 32-bit version that they've offered here. And Kubuntu is another version of Ubuntu, another flavor. If you wanted, you could try it. But I've been using just straightforward Ubuntu 18.04. That's what I'm going to do. It will ask me if I want to try it or if I just want to install it. I'm going to just install it. I've already tried it. I know what I want. You may want to give it a trial first. As I said, there are various live editions that are published periodically with the various Linux periodicals that you can find. There's a couple of them that you'll find at your local bookstore in the technology section, and one of them has a disc adhered to the front cover, the other has a disc packaged on the inside, and as I said, you can find a variety of different distros from month to month. Now, in the most recent editions of them, the one magazine is packaging Linux Mint 19.3 along with Elementary OS version 5.1. The other one is offering Kali, K-A-L-I, and the flip side of it is a G-parted disk. Those are topics for another time. In short, Kali is focused at users that are highly technically oriented, and in particular it is designed as a security distro. It has very particular purposes in the security realm. So it's not really for the average user. Among the distros that would be good for an average user, those that I've named, Ubuntu, Mint, there's a variation on Mint called Peppermint, and it's supposed to be kind of a similar look and feel to Windows. I have not tried it, but I know of someone who is a great fan of it. Both of these, along with Ubuntu, are in the Debian family, and that has good things going for it. Others that are possibilities, Manjaro, which is in the Arch family. Arch is not an easy one to do from the ground up, but Manjaro has been made so that it is quite easy to use, and I have used it, and I think it is a good possibility if you wanted to try it. And OpenSUSE, again, easy to use, and while there are differences between these distros, there are a lot of commonalities as well, and if you can find your way around in one, you'll be able to find your way around in the others. They just do things a little differently is all. So while this is booting, getting ready to start the installation process, I'm just trying to fill up a little bit of dead air here and trying to figure out what else I should be telling you. As I said, this is an unscripted video, and I expect it to take something on the order of 30 minutes or so. With Windows 10, if you try to migrate from Windows 7 to Windows 10, I would say count on a minimum of 2 hours for the process, and if my experience is anything like others, then your average may be closer to 4 hours, and in some cases it can take even longer than that. So doing a Linux installation, definitely quicker, and if you can do a Windows 7 to Windows 10 migration, you can definitely do a Linux installation. You shouldn't be afraid of it. What else should I tell you? Pop! OS and Zorin OS would be a couple of other distros that have a similar kind of look and feel to Windows. Not the same, but if you want that feeling that you had with Windows, they give you a desktop environment that may feel similar to you. You can do some tweaking on any of the others, though. Change around your desktop environment to make it work best for your workflow. Linux is an operating system that you can financially support if you wish. You can make donations to the developers of the various versions, and that would be encouraged, I guess. But it is what they call free and open source, and in this case free means you have freedom. You can modify it, change it, you can look at the source code, you can even make modifications and deliver it to others. So you have freedom, and also you can get it without having to pay a cent for it. First thing it's asking for is my preferred language, English, yes. And then it'll ask me about my keyboard. Again, English, which is the default there. And normal installation, I want it to go ahead and install things like Thunderbird and my web browser and LibreOffice. It'll go ahead and do that if I say a normal installation. If I say a minimal installation, then I'd have to go to the Software Center and download the packages I want individually. This will just save a step. So normal installation, continue. Now, it asks if I want to erase the disk and install Ubuntu. Actually, I don't, because the disk that it has found at this point is my data drive that's in the normal hard drive bay in this laptop, and where I want it to install is actually in the drive that's in the caddy. So I need to tell it to do something else. So at this point, it finds SDA. The Linux designation for your drives is a little different than with Windows. Windows has been using a simple nomenclature for quite a while now, where your boot drive is C. If you have a floppy drive, that was A or B. It's been a long time since that, so most folks either have C drives or optical drive, sometimes defaults to D. In Linux, it's a little different. It starts out SDA, etc. And on the device SDA, there's SDA 1 and 2, etc. But I also have SDB, and that's where we're going to do it. This is the drive that's in the caddy. And the reason that I know that is I know the make of the drive that's in each location. SDA in the normal hard drive bay is my Samsung drive, and SDB is the Crucial drive. And they're both 500 gigabyte drives, but this is the Crucial drive, and the other one. So we're going to install it on this one. So we'll say install now, but it's going to tell us that there's not what it needs yet. No root file system is defined. So what I need to do is come back here. This is where you'd probably stumble around a bit trying to figure it out and look around on various websites saying, well, what in the world am I supposed to do? What we do here is right click, new partition table. Okay? You've selected an entire device to partition. If you proceed, continue. Okay? So now it's created a partition table, And what we're going to do in the free space, we're going to add a partition. We're going to make it the primary partition. We're going to have it start at the beginning of the space. We're going to make it an ext4 journaling file system. There are several options, but ext4 is probably your best choice unless you really know what you're doing and want to do something else. I would choose that one. And then I'm going to choose the mount point as being root. So that would be like with Windows C:/nothing. So that's where we are. Okay. And install now. Not there, down here. If you continue, these are the changes. And SDB is correct, so we continue. And time zone, close enough. It wants my name, okay. And that'll do for a computer name. I'll accept that. And Ubuntu insists that I install it with a password, so I'll do that. Now it says it's a fair password. If I'd just used lowercase letters, then it would have said it was a poor one. But the next thing it'll do is check my re-entry of it, make sure they match. And they do. So, next step. After you've got your operating system installed, every time you do something to change it, or to add software, or to use certain programs that can address deep parts of your operating system, anytime you need to use one of those, then it's going to ask you to enter your password. You'll also need to enter it when you first boot the machine up and log in. If you let it go blank, go into a sleep mode, come back to it, then it will also want your password. So where are we now? It says, welcome to Ubuntu. Fast, full of new features, the latest version of Ubuntu makes computing easier than ever. Here are just a few of the new things. So you got a slideshow that you can look at while it's in the process of starting the installation. You'll notice this Beaver logo, and the reason they have that, every edition of Ubuntu, they give a name, and it'll be an adjective and then an animal. Well, this version is Bionic Beaver, so that's why you have the Beaver logo. So, they'll tell you about software, how you get it. They'll tell you about playing your music, tell you about working with photos, using the web. We are installing LibreOffice, so Writer, Calc, and Impress will be on there. So also will be Draw. Some of the same kinds of productivity software that you'll find in Microsoft Office. They function differently, but you can accomplish the same outcome, and it's the outcome that matters, not the steps that get there. So, access for everyone. Well, far as I'm concerned, this is talking more about how you can customize it for yourself, different wallpapers, etc. If you wanted to add users, there are ways of doing that. And it tells you about getting help and support. So, spend a little bit of time looking at those screens. They won't all make sense until you actually get in and actually start working with it, but it does give you a short introduction as to what's coming. This process here, as I said, will take less than half an hour, and we right now are at 17 minutes in from when I started the video, this section of the video. I did have a little bit of an introduction ahead of that, but this section where I first showed you my startup screen where I chose my boot device, from then until now it's been almost 18 minutes, and it should be done in under half an hour. The various magazines that I mentioned a little bit ago that have distros packaged with them. They have lots of good information on the inside. They are worth the purchase, in my opinion, especially when they have articles that address a topic that is of immediate interest to you. But I have found that they are worth hanging on to, and I've developed a library of them over the years. There are some other magazines that I haven't yet mentioned that you could also find interesting. One is called Admin, and they also have a magazine. It's published by Linux Pro magazine. This one is called Discover LibreOffice, and they give you a LibreOffice DVD with it, and articles in this magazine, same size and thickness, etc. as the others that I was mentioning. Articles in this magazine tell you about using LibreOffice. This is the 2019 edition that I have in my hand. But you pick these up at your local bookstore, and there's helpful information there. You can go online and find forums. You can find videos like mine and others, which sometimes get even more technical than mine has. And there's just lots of ways of getting help. And if you're interested in doing this, it's not difficult, and as I said, if you can make the migration from Windows 7 to Windows 10, you can do this. It is in the process, the final stages now, and here we are just over 20 minutes into the installation process. One of the things that it will do in this stage is start lining up all the drivers that you need. And what I've found so far is that Linux is very good with driver support. First bit of hardware that I installed it on was my tablet. And I did run into two snags back then, and that was in 2017, I guess. Maybe it's 2016, 2017, somewhere back in there. And what I found was, at the time, the kernel did not have support for one of the two webcams in the tablet, and it also did not have support for the Dell proprietary Wi-Fi and Bluetooth card. But just a short time later, just a couple months later, they had developed support in the kernel. The kernel update then gave me full use of my system, both webcams now, and what I found was I could swap out my Dell proprietary Wi-Fi Bluetooth card and get a... This is an edit clip because I misspoke first time around. My proprietary Dell Wi-Fi Bluetooth card I did swap out, and the manufacturer on it was Intel, and that was what made it easier for the kernel to support it. The Dell proprietary hardware, the kernel could not support for some reason. So, and all of the driver support for it was already in the Linux kernel. It was a cheap fix, very inexpensive piece of hardware. Excuse me. And easy to swap out. The most difficult part was, disconnecting the antennas. I felt like they're very fragile. I didn't want to break them. But very easy to swap out. If you can swap out an M.2 drive, then you can swap one of these out. So, driver support very good with Linux. Where I have run into a snag that doesn't look like it will get resolved is with my A3 scanner made by Musetech. And this is a scanner from 12-15 years ago. I'm not sure now. And what I found was that the drivers that were originally written for it were actually written for Vista, and they worked fine under XP, they worked fine under Windows 7. I had full use. It was an excellent piece of equipment under Windows 7. But with Windows 10, the driver support is not there. I can only get black and white scans, not color. And the scan quality under Linux just is not acceptable. So, that's why I need multiple operating systems on this particular device. I want to be able to continue using that scanner, so I need Windows 7. I want Ubuntu as my daily driver, so that's what we're working on right now. And then I'll also want to be able to use Windows 10 on it. So that's why I have the caddy with the swappability feature. And we are in the final stages of the setup. Just a few more minutes. Here we are at 24.5 minutes into it. Installation's complete. You need to restart the computer in order to use your new installation. So, we will restart, and while it's in the process of restarting, I'm going to disconnect the optical drive so it doesn't try to reboot from it. As soon as the screen goes dark, there we go. So pull that. Now get there, and I need F12. And as you see, now the CD doesn't appear, the DVD drive doesn't appear, and it is hard drive that I want to boot from, so there we go. As I said, when you log in, you need to enter your password, just like you should have been doing with Windows. And there we are. They have a welcome screen that basically introduces you, says these are some of the things that you will find. Date and time up here at the top, they're showing you that. These are some of the things about your system connected to the internet. My guess is that that's talking about Wi-Fi. Volume control, my battery status. This is where I find the power button, where I turn it off. You're used to doing it down in the opposite corner with Windows, but with Ubuntu 18.04, the standard location's up here. You can do some tweaking to move it, but I've just left it there. When you get your drop down from this corner, there's your power button. You also have a settings menu, and you can do things here like if you have multiple monitors, come down to devices and tell it how you want to use those monitors. Do you want to have an extended desktop, what they call join displays? Do you want each monitor to duplicate what the other has, or do you just want to use one of them? So that's here. All of your hardware settings you can find in that panel, which is in that drop down up in the upper right hand corner. Live patch, I'm not going to set it up. They want me to set up an account with Ubuntu, and I just don't feel like doing that. Help improve Ubuntu. Do you want to send in a report so that they know what kind of system you're working with, and if you have a problem, they can try to figure out what in the world went wrong and make improvements to their system? Some people don't like doing that. They feel it's an invasion of privacy, so you have that tick box that you can say, no, I don't want to. But you can see exactly what the report is that it'll send in, and okay, I've told folks what I have. It's public knowledge what I have. It's a Dell Vostro 3550, and I've already told folks that I'm using the BIOS version A12. There is nothing here that I feel compromises my privacy, so I don't mind sending it in. So I'm just going to go ahead and leave that, and we're ready to go. And first thing you can do, they're suggesting that you go to the Software Center and explore what kind of software is available. It's a possibility, but first thing I'm going to do, they're letting me know that there's updates. Of course there are updates. This is from 2018, and here we are in 2020. So I'm going to say go ahead and install those updates. And it'll ask for my password. And it'll start updating. Something else that I'm going to do is I'm going to remove this Amazon shortcut. When I want to go to Amazon, I'll just use my web browser, go straight there, do my business. I don't need something in Ubuntu to take me to Amazon. Yeah, I think the updater has that part of the operating system locked, so they can't do anything at present. Once all of the updates are done, it will want me to reboot. There's quite a number of updates here, and in this case it's necessary. Sometimes you can do updates without needing to reboot. Something that is a little less common in the Windows environment, but I would say usually your updates don't require a reboot, but every once in a while with Ubuntu or Linux systems they will. As you work with Linux, you'll learn about things like rolling releases and LTS versions versus those that are not, and you'll start trying to make decisions as to which you want, which kind of system you like better. As you see, I have kind of settled in with Ubuntu, and I think it works well, and it satisfies my workflow. Working with the free and open source Office productivity suite, there are some different steps for accomplishing the same tasks, so there's a learning curve, but there's a learning curve no matter what you do. And so don't let the learning curve scare you here. You have it no matter what you do. Yes, there's going to be some new things to learn with LibreOffice. It won't work just like Microsoft Office, but that's just part of the territory, and it's not something that's difficult or insuperable. Where you'll get into trouble is if you start expecting Linux or the applications in Linux to work just like things did in Windows. They don't. Don't expect it to, and you'll be fine. Computer needs to restart to finish installing updates, so restart now. And F12 to get into that menu, and boom.